Today's lesson is focused on algebraic fractions, and specifically we're going to be looking at adding and subtracting them. So some things that relate to fractions that you've done in the past, we're going to be finding the lowest common denominator. That's the same as the lowest common factor, it's just the number in the denominator. We're going to express each part over that lowest common denominator, and we're going to use a big vinculum, that's the line between the numerator and the denominator. And then we're going to collect like terms across the numerator. So let's actually get into doing some questions with this. Start off relatively simple. We've got x over 2 plus x over 3. Looking at what we have here, the lowest common denominator is going to be 6. So to achieve that, we're going to multiply the top and bottom of the first fraction by 3 and the top and bottom of the second fraction by 2. That gives us a common denominator of 6, and notice we've written a big vinculum there. X times 3 gives us 3x, this plus sign is what comes down here, and x times 2 gives us 2x. So this gives us 5x over 6. It's always a good idea to check if you have any common factors in your numerator and denominator with these questions. We don't have it for part A, but let's keep an eye out for future questions. Okay, in the next one, the lowest common denominator is going to be 20. So to achieve that, we're going to multiply the top and bottom of the first fraction by 5, and the top or numerator and bottom denominator of the second fraction, not by 5, but by 4. That's better. So we get the common denominator of 20, was the whole reason we did that. 3x times 5 is 15x, and then we've got minus, this sign comes down here, and then 2x times 4, 8x. So now we've now got 15x minus 8x, that gives us 7x on 20, and we can't simplify that any further. Okay, the next question, we've got 2x minus 7x over 4. If we wrote this 2x over 1, as we can write with any whole number, or in this case, we've got 2x, we've got a term. If we multiply the top and bottom of that newly created fraction by 4, that gives us our lowest common denominator of 4. Don't need to multiply the second fraction because it's already over 4. So that gives us 8x. This subtraction comes from here, minus 7x, and that gives us just x over 4. Remember, we don't write coefficients of 1. They become invisible. Okay, last one in this lot of examples, we've got 3 and 2, so we're going to multiply this times 2 and times 2, this times 3 times 3. That gives us our lowest common denominator of 6. So the first numerator becomes 4x, and we get minus the second numerator now becomes 3x, and that's going to give us x over 6. So a little note here, it says if there are multiple terms in the numerator, take care to use brackets. Brackets so often save our bacon when we're doing algebra. So we need to use brackets to ensure all terms are multiplied by the required amount. And take great care with negatives. These are really, really, really important to be careful of. So here we go, we've got some algebraic fractions with 2 terms in the numerator now. Going to look at what we have. Denominator-wise, we've got 6 and 4. The lowest common denominator is actually going to be 12 rather than 24, because I know that 6 times 2 is going to give me 12, and 4 times 3 gives me 12. When I'm multiplying the top and bottom of that first fraction, the bottom's fine, we're doing 6 times 2, but we need to multiply the entirety of this top numerator by 2, and in order to achieve that, we're going to use brackets and put a 2 out the front. In the second fraction, we're multiplying by 3, and to multiply everything in that numerator by 3, we're going to put brackets around it. So, as we said, our lowest common denominator is 12, and then we're going to have 2x plus 1 plus 3x plus 4. Now, you might be tempted to skip this step, and look, you'd probably get away with it if you were doing positive numbers, but I really do recommend that you write it. It helps you break up the task and focus on getting every bit accurately done. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but we're going to expand out these 2 sets of brackets, and then we're going to see if we can combine any like terms in that numerator. So that first bracket, let's maybe draw that vinculum. We've got 2 times x, and then 2 times 1. Then we've got 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 4 is 12, all over 12. We've got some like terms here. We've got this 2x and this positive 3x. Oop, my laser pointer went a bit funny. So that becomes 5x. And then we've got 2 plus 12, so plus 14 over 12. As we're going to learn next lesson, that's our final answer. We can't cancel off anything here. Okay, next one. Lowest common denominator is actually going to be 10. So that means we're multiplying top and bottom of this by 2. And to achieve that, we need those brackets. So here's the 10. That y plus 1 is just hanging out. And then we're going to have plus, that sign came from here. So we can have plus and then 2x plus y. Expanding that out. That y plus 1 is still waiting to hang out, and we've got the plus 2x plus 2y now, all over 10. Any common factors there? We sure do. We've got that y and that 2y here, so let's put them together. That's going to be 3y plus 1 plus 2x. Could have changed the way you wrote that around. That's fine as well. Okay, the next few examples have negative signs, and you're going to see the importance of showing your lines of working out to ensure that you get accurate answers. Still, same process as before, thinking of the lowest common denominator. In this instance, it's 12 times 2, bracket, bracket, we've got a 2, times 3, bracket, bracket, and a 3. So let's write what that represents. We've got 2, and then in brackets x plus 2. We've got a subtraction sign, because that has come from what we were doing down here. And then we've got 3, bracket x minus 3. Now, these brackets are absolutely critical. Let's expand them out in the next one. That 12 is still there. First bracket becomes 2x plus 4, and now we've got minus 3 times everything in the second bracket. So minus 3 times x becomes minus 3x, minus 3 times that minus 3 times that negative 3 inside of the bracket becomes plus 9. This positive sign here is one that people often forget, because they forget that this negative sign here belongs to that 3. So really, really important there. Okay, let's combine our like terms. We've got 2x minus 3x, so that gives us negative x. And we have positive 4 plus 9, so that becomes plus 13, and that's still all over 12. Okay, the next one immediately looks kind of simple. We've got the same common denominator already. But this negative sign is telling us that we're subtracting x minus 3. We're not just subtracting x, we're also subtracting negative 3. And remember, if you subtract negative 3, that's like you're adding 3. So I like to write it like this. We've got x plus 7, and then we're going to have minus, and we said we're subtracting x minus 3. So brackets will represent that we're taking away that entire numerator. And we've got that common denominator of 3. So that becomes x plus 7 minus x plus 3. So again, remember we said we're subtracting x and we're subtracting negative 3. The same thing as subtracting negative 3 is adding 3. And that's still over 3. Common denominator, great. So we're going to add and subtract like terms. So we've got x minus x, so they go away. And then we're going to have 7 plus that 3. So the answer is 10 over 3. Improper fractions are perfectly fine. You don't need to write that as a mixed number unless the question asks you to, which this one doesn't. Okay, looking at the next one. Lowest common denominator is going to be 12 again. So we're going to have times 2 and times 2 here. And then we're going to have times 3 and times 3 here. So the first bracket becomes 2 and then x plus 2. This subtraction has come from the fact that we are, subtracting over here. And then we have 3x plus 4. If your vinculum's ever too short, make it a little longer. There we go. Let's expand out those brackets. So we get 6x plus 4 minus 3x minus 12 all over 12. We've got some like terms here. We've got 6x minus 3x, so that's going to give us 3x. And then we have 4 minus 12, and that gives us negative 8. And that's still all over 12. Fabulous. Okay, this next one, lowest common denominator is going to be 4. To achieve that, we're going to multiply the top and bottom of this fraction by 2, remembering those brackets. So we get 2 and then 3x plus 3. Now we're subtracting here. We're subtracting 2x plus 1. So we're not just going to write minus 2x plus 1, because that means we're only subtracting that 2x. We're not also subtracting that 1. So to achieve that, brackets are essential. Oops, my essential dropped off a little bit. Okay, expanding out those essential brackets. 6x plus 6 minus 2x minus 1 all over 4. Now we've got that 6x minus 2x, which is going to be 4x. And we've got that plus 6 minus 1, so that's going to be plus 5 all over 4. Okay, that's looking at when we had two different factors in the numerator. Same process applies if you had more than 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you've got. Brackets are essential. Make sure you consider that lowest common denominator and add and subtract like terms. Okay, the last lot we have is we're adding algebraic fractions that have variables in the denominator. So this is very much the same as what we've been dealing with before with fractions. If we have a common denominator, we're all set up ready to add our fractions together. So we've got a common denominator in this first one of a. So that means we're just going to have 5 plus 3, or 8 over a. The next one, got another common denominator of b. So we write it with a big vinculum and b underneath. Then we've got 6 plus 2a. Not much more we can do with that one. If we look at this next one though, notice we've got x and 2x. In order to achieve a common denominator here, we're going to have to multiply the top and bottom by 2. So 2 times x and 2 times that 1. So common denominator becomes 2x. Numerator of the first 2 times 1 is 2. And we've got minus 3. 2 minus 3 gives us negative 1 over 2x, which you could have also written as negative 1 over 2x. Last one. We have 2x over 3y plus 3 over 5y. Lowest common denominator, that's actually going to be 15y, multiplying this by 5 and 5, and multiplying this by 3 and 3. So first numerator becomes 10x, that plus sign comes down, and 3 times 3 is 9. No more we can do with that one. Now, if I gave you a bonus question here, and I said you had 2 over 5, oh, that 5 was a bit funny, 2 over 5 plus x over y. How could you write a common denominator here? Well, you might have noticed, common denominator, we could have multiplied the first fraction times y, and the second fraction times 5 times 5. So that would give us 2y plus 5x all over 5y. Okay, so we've practiced adding algebraic fractions with a single term in the numerator, I mean. We've added some algebraic fractions that had 2 terms in the numerator, and we've talked about the fact that that works for multiple larger than 2, so 3, 4, 5, etc. We've now also added some algebraic fractions with values in the denominator. So now you can have a look at 2.10 in your prime booklet. Good luck.